So you're going to hear a lot of stupid stuff in the next 72 hours, dumb stuff, false stuff, destructive stuff. You're going to hear it all. I am here tonight to lay this latest Trump indictment and the whole thing, to tie it up into a rational, fair assessment of where we are. And where we are is not in a good place as a country. All right, let's begin with the Georgia situation. So this is putting our democracy in jeopardy. That's not an overstatement. Because what this is a local district attorney interfering in a national presidential campaign. Fani Willis is her name. Fulton County, Georgia, that's Atlanta. She is charging Donald Trump and 18 others, or whatever it may be, with conspiracy racketeering to overturn the Georgia election in 2020. But here's the interesting thing. Fani is the only district attorney in the entire state of Georgia alleging this. All of the others, even the Democrats, have not signed on here. Second thing, you would think that this kind of a charge would be the Attorney General of Georgia's purview, not Fani. And if you don't know Fani Willis, she's an ardent Democratic machine leftist. So there's politics already involved with this. But just step back for a moment. Even if you hate Donald Trump, just step back. One woman in charge of justice in one county has now disrupted the entire presidential campaign. And if convicted in Georgia, Donald Trump would have to go to prison. It's a mandatory conviction. He's not going to be convicted on racketeering and conspiracy. That won't happen. All right. But if he were ever to be convicted, then he would have to go to prison. So Fani Willis began her investigation 2.5 years ago. As soon as Joe Biden walked into office, she started. What she came up with are a series of vague charges, all right? Very few specifics. Now, we'll learn the specifics in discovery when the Trump lawyers go in and get all of the specific information. But we don't know them now. So anybody trying this on television and radio, either way, convicting Trump or acquitting Trump, is doing you a disservice because we don't know. We do know is that Fani could have wrapped this up in 2.5 months, not 2.5 years, because nothing changed from what Trump allegedly did in November and December and early January after the presidential vote of 2020. Nothing's changed. So it took Fani 2.5 years to arrive at this racketeering thing? Does that make any sense to you? No. So now we have a situation where, again, one person, one law enforcement official is now influenced all 365 American citizens. Let's put this into some kind of perspective. Roll the tape.
She is listing over 160 acts. They're often phone calls, meetings, tweets. She just calls them all criminal. She says that they all were knowingly false. And with that broad brush, she's able to indict everyone and bring in 19 people into that courtroom. That's the benefit of using a racketeering approach. But it also increases the danger for the country in terms of how we will handle contested elections in the future.
Now, Jonathan Turley is the best of them. Okay? On the written front, Victor Davis Hanson is the best. So it used to be Charles Krauthammer was the best. The late Charles Krauthammer was the best on TV. I think I vie with Hanson on the column stuff, but Hanson turns out more print stuff than I do. So if you really want the perspective from an honest point of view, Turley and Hanson are your go-to people. Now, out of the 18 co-defendants, we got Rudy Giuliani, Mark Meadows, former White House chief of staff under Trump, John Eastman, Trump's lawyer, Sidney Powell. Those are the headliners. They're all going to be brought in. and they have to show up on August 25th for this arraignment. But again, Americans say, well, okay, but we have other things to deal with here, right? We've got the Mar-a-Lago documents. That's a federal beef being played out in Florida. The January 6th interference at the Capitol, the election interference, that's a federal beef. The New York Stormy Daniels thing, which the DA in New York still hasn't explained to New Yorkers or Americans what the federal law is. Why are you even bringing this thing? It's a civil beef. Why'd you criminalize it? Bragg, I don't have to tell you. So that one, it's not going to go anywhere. I don't think the Georgia thing's going to go anywhere because the Trump lawyers can say, this is a federal election. We want it in federal court. That'll be my first step. And Fannie is overreached because there's nobody else in Georgia backing her up. So that would be the first step. Now, the Mar-a-Lago thing, Trump did it. I got a couple of letters at the end of the show I'm going to read to you by viewers, No Spin News viewers, that say he didn't do it, but he did it. So if I were Trump, and I said this earlier this week in my column, I'd plea that out. It's a low-level beef, but I'd plea it out and, whatever it may be. Get that off your sheet, okay? And I'll tell you why in a moment. It's important. The interference in the election at January 6th is all about state of mind. And as I told you yesterday with Vice President Pence, Pence isn't saying that Trump knew the election was lost and lied about it anyway and tried to interfere anyway. That's not what Trump is saying. Pence said that on television. So that case blows right up there. Again, I'm not trying the case. I'm just telling you what's on the record. So there may be other things in the interference case on January 6th that I don't know. All right. So the Supreme Court is going to have to get involved with this. They have to because the 9 justices know what's happening. They're not stupid people. They know that all of these charges against Donald Trump are coordinated by Democrats. There's not one charge that's been brought against Trump, and I think there are 77 of them now, or 97, I can't keep track. Not one that's been brought by an independent or a Republican. They're all Democrats, and it's all timed, all right, to divert attention away from Joe Biden's problems. The 9 justices know that. They also know what Counselor Turley just said, that if this is successful, if Fannie Willis is successful, then any prosecutor anywhere in the country can drum up some kind of charge against a national or state or local office seeker and completely divert their campaign. Supreme Court is not going to allow that to happen. 6 of the justices will absolutely try to stop this. The other 3, I don't know where they're going to come down. But I don't know exactly how the Supreme Court's going to get involved. Now, remember, in the election of 2000, I can't believe that was 23 years ago, the Supreme Court stepped in because Florida was so chaotic, it's so out of control, and basically said, Bush won. And to Gore's credit, Gore said, okay. That is Al Gore's legacy. Trump did not say okay in the 2020 election. He did not. He left the White House, the power turned over, but he continued to say that it was a rigged election. And to this day, there is not enough evidence to prove it. Now, the Trump people continue to say they have it or they're going to present it. All right, I'm ready to listen. But right now, it's not there. So Gore stepped aside, Trump did not. That's the historical fact. However, Trump has a right, a constitutional right, to have an opinion that the election of 2020 was rigged. He has a right to say it. He has a right to write it. He has a right to go around to rallies and rail against it. That is not a crime. It only becomes a crime when, like Fox News, right, Trump knew he lost, and I don't believe that for a second, and I know Trump better than anybody, and then proceeded to try to corrupt the election anyway. Knew he lost, but then continued to take these steps. Right now, Trump believed what he wanted to believe. He got lawyers like Eastman to tell him, you can do another slate of electorates, of electoral people. All Vice President Pence has to do is stay the election, and you can bring in these people from Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, wherever, who can say, no, 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 the vote in our state was flawed, and I'm going to give my electoral votes to Trump. That's what Eastman told Trump he could do under the Constitution. Well, it's false. That was bad advice. But Trump wanted to believe it. So that's what he tried to do. But there is not a shred of evidence that Trump did what Fox News did. They knew that the voting machines weren't rigged, but said it anyway. That's why they lost $800 million. No evidence that Trump knew he lost. To this day, that man believes he won that election in 2020. Thank you for watching the No Spin News. To watch the full episode anytime on BillO'Reilly.com, please sign up to become a premium or concierge member. Visit BillO'Reilly.com to sign up and start watching today.